I've always been a skeptic. Ghost stories, urban legends, haunted houses, they never quite did it for me. I chalked it up to people's overactive imaginations and a craving for the strange. But if you had asked me 6 months ago whether I believed in the supernatural, I would have laughed in your face. Now, I sleep with the bathroom mirror covered by a thick blanket duct taped around the edges, so not even a sliver of glass shows. It started innocently, the way these things always do. I had just moved into an old townhouse on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a creaky place built in the 1940s with thin walls and warped floorboards that moaned when you walked on them. It was affordable and close to work, which was all I cared about at the time. There was only one bathroom in the house, situated upstairs across from my bedroom. It was outdated, green-tiled walls, yellowing linoleum floors, and a tall mirror cabinet bolted to the wall above the sink. The mirror was large and slightly warped, so when you moved in front of it, your reflection wobbled subtly, like you were standing underwater. I remember thinking it added character. The first time I noticed something was off, I had just come out of the shower. The mirror had fogged up, as usual, and I was drying off when I caught something in the steam. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light or the smudges I hadn't cleaned. But then I leaned in. 2 tiny circles. They looked like eyes. Not my eyes, not the shape or height that would match mine. They were lower on the mirror and farther apart. They appeared as 2 clean spots where the condensation hadn't formed, as though someone or something had stood there just before I entered the room and breathed against the glass. It wasn't alarming yet, just strange. I wiped it away and forgot about it. The next few mornings, the same thing happened. I'd take my shower, and when I got out, those 2 circles would be there again, always in the same spot, perfectly symmetrical. Too perfect. I told myself it was just residue. Maybe the mirror had permanent marks or oils that resisted fog. I even tested it by scrubbing it down with Windex and a sponge. But the next morning, the circles were still there, almost cleaner than before. That was when the dreams started. They weren't nightmares at first, more like fragments. I'd be in my bathroom, only it wasn't quite right. The colors were too vivid, like an old film reel. I'd be staring into the mirror, but I wouldn't see myself. I'd see a silhouette behind me. It never moved, never made a sound. Just stood there, watching. I began waking up drenched in sweat, feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My eyes would dart to the closed bathroom door, half expecting it to creak open. I thought I was losing it. I told my friend Marcus, a psychologist, about the dreams. He said it sounded like a stress response. You just moved, he said. New environments mess with your circadian rhythm. It'll pass. Except it didn't. One night, I left the mirror clean and completely dry before bed. I double-checked, no steam, no residue. But when I woke up the next morning and stepped into the bathroom, the circles were there again. Only this time, there was something new, a line, just beneath the 2 circles, a horizontal smear, a mouth, not a smile, not a frown, just a long, flat smudge. Together, the 3 marks formed a crude face, oval in shape, lifeless, watching. I stood frozen, staring at it for what felt like forever. My heart pounded, and I could feel cold sweat running down my back. I lifted my hand and wiped it away with the towel. My reflection stared back at me with hollow eyes. I stopped using the mirror after that. I avoided looking into it as much as I could. I brushed my teeth staring at the faucet. I shaved in the kitchen using my phone's selfie camera. If I had to walk past it, I kept my head down. That worked for a while, until one night, around 3 a.m., I heard the bathroom door slam shut. I bolted upright in bed. The house was silent. Too silent. I had no pets, no roommates, and all the windows were closed. I grabbed the flashlight on my nightstand and crept out into the hallway. The bathroom door was shut, the light inside off. I could feel cold air seeping from under the crack, like a refrigerator door left open. I reached for the handle. It was ice cold. I turned it slowly, and the door creaked open. The room inside was dark and smelled faintly of mildew. The mirror was fogged over completely, as though someone had taken a steaming hot shower. The floor was dry. The air was frigid, and in the fog on the mirror, the face was there again. But not just a face, this time it had hands. Pale, child-sized handprints pressed against the glass from the inside, as if someone were trapped behind it. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just shut the door and went back to my room, locking it behind me. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, the mirror was spotless. I started researching the house. It took some digging, but I eventually found a forum post from someone who claimed to have lived in the neighborhood decades ago. According to them, the previous tenant in my townhouse had been an elderly woman named Clara Green, who lived there alone for over 40 years. She had died in that bathroom. Heart attack, they said, but one commenter added something strange, that she had been found facing the mirror, kneeling, with both hands pressed flat against the glass. I don't know why that detail made my stomach turn. I asked Marcus if he could help me find someone who specialized in the weird stuff, paranormal investigators. He laughed it off at first, but I think he saw how serious I was. He gave me a number for someone named Evelyn Hart. She's a little eccentric, he warned, but she knows her stuff. I called her that evening. Evelyn sounded calm, older, like someone who had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. I described everything, the face, the dreams, the handprints. There was a long silence before she asked, "Do you still see the condensation in the same place?" "Yes. And it's always there after you sleep?" I told her yes again. "That's not residue," she said. "It's not the mirror. It's you." "What does that mean?" I asked, heart thudding. "It's a mirroring," she said. "It's trying to communicate or mimic. Sometimes when something passes on in a moment of intense fear or confusion, they get stuck. Not in the house. In a pattern in repetition. Echoes, especially in things that reflect." She paused, then asked, "Has the face changed?" I told her no, just that it had added hands. "It will evolve," she said. "You need to be careful. You're becoming part of its cycle. If it starts moving, you're in danger." I don't know what I expected her to say. That was just my mind playing tricks on me. That would go away. Instead, she told me to stop using mirrors. "Cover them all," she said, "especially the bathroom one. Never look into it at night. Never while it's fogged. And whatever you do, don't speak to it. Speak to it. Not even in your head." I hung up shaking. That night, I covered the bathroom mirror with a thick quilt and taped the edges. I unplugged anything reflective. No TVs, no phone screens in the dark. For 3 nights, everything was calm. Until I woke up on the 4th, my bedroom mirror, the one I'd covered, completely uncovered, lying on the floor. The quilt was folded neatly on the bed beside me. The mirror fogged over, even though the air was warm. And on the surface, the face was there again. Only this time it was smiling. If you've ever woken up and felt, without question, that something has changed, not in the world, but in your own reality, you'll understand what that morning felt like. That smile in the mirror wasn't mine, and it wasn't the warped, ambient kind you get when steam curls unevenly across the glass. No, it was clean, etched, deliberate. And worst of all, it was whiter than it should have been. Teeth, not misty or smudged, but stark, as if drawn with pressure, were visible. Sharp, and too many of them. My body froze, refusing to step forward into the room, and my thoughts began to spiral. Who had removed the quilt? How had the mirror fogged over again? I hadn't taken a shower, the window was sealed shut, and the radiator hadn't kicked in. I wanted to believe I had done it in my sleep, that I had removed the quilt, that I had fogged the mirror with my own breath. But then, why didn't it fog around my reflection? Why did it fog except where the eyes and mouth were? I backed out of the room slowly, locked the door, and made a call to Evelyn Hart. She picked up instantly. It smiled, I said. She didn't ask me who I was. She didn't greet me. Just silence. Then, how long was it smiling before you saw it? I don't know. I just woke up and saw it. Then it's already moved forward. What does that mean? It means the reflection is no longer tethered to the mirror. It's looking for a way through. Those words made my blood go cold. I sat on the couch gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. There are rules, she continued. You still have a chance. But you need to understand, mirrors aren't just reflections. They're thresholds, thin places. You've let something notice you, and now it's mimicking what it thinks is you. My mouth was dry. What do I do? Cover every mirror in your home. Not just the bathroom. Every reflective surface. Even dark windows at night. It doesn't have to be glass. Anything that reflects counts. It's learning how to find you in them. That was the first time I understood the scale of what I was dealing with. That night, I went through the house with blankets, towels, tape, and black trash bags. I covered the bathroom mirror, my bedroom dresser, the microwave door, even my phone with an opaque screen protector. I turned off every screen and every shiny surface I could think of. I slept on the couch, away from the bathroom. And for 2 nights, everything was still. Then came the third night. Around 2:43 a.m., I woke to a sound. Not a bang, not a footstep, not a voice. A breath, a slow, shallow inhale, and then a wet, rattling exhale. Right next to me, I shot upright, heart pounding, and turned on every light in the living room. Nothing. No one. The mirror in the hallway was still covered. The TV screen was off. The windows were taped with trash bags. But the sound had been real. So close it'd stir the hair on my arms. The next morning, I discovered the first real sign that it had moved past the mirror. Inside the bathroom, behind the taped quilt, something had scratched into the mirror surface. I peeled back one corner of the fabric and saw faint etchings in the glass. A series of lines, jagged, like someone had clawed at the surface with a sharp object. At first, I thought it was gibberish, but when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't random. It was writing, backwards. I stepped into the bathroom with my phone flashlight and read it again, using the mirror function to reverse the image. Let me wear your face. I stumbled back out of the room and threw up in the sink. Evelyn came over that afternoon. I didn't tell her everything over the phone. I wanted her to see it. I hadn't peeled off the rest of the quilt from the mirror. I didn't want to risk another face, another message, another reflection that didn't belong. When she arrived, she brought with her a leather satchel filled with objects I couldn't identify. She stepped into the house, paused in the entryway, and her face paled. You feel that, she asked. The cold, I replied. She shook her head. The pull. We walked upstairs, and I let her peel back the quilt. She traced the etched letters with her fingertip and muttered something under her breath, Latin or maybe something older. She then stood perfectly still in front of the mirror, staring into it. I don't see anything, I whispered. That's because it's not in the mirror anymore. I felt my stomach knot. Then where is it? She turned toward me. It's watching. That's all it can do. For now. But it's wearing you like a skin. That's why it mimics your breath in the fog. It's practicing. If you give it too much of yourself, your attention, your voice, your reflection, it can step through. I haven't looked at it. Not in days. She glanced around my home. Have you dreamed of it? I swallowed. Yes, that counts. Over the next week, things began to escalate. I kept all surfaces covered. I didn't dream, not that I remembered at least. I even stopped sleeping in my bedroom and spent nights at Marcus's place. But no matter where I was, I began to see reflections that weren't mine. Store windows, rear-view mirrors, elevator panels. In each one, for just a split second, there it was. Eyes slightly wider, mouth too narrow, expression wrong. But where are my clothes? My posture? My face? I took pictures, but the reflection never showed up in them. Marcus caught me staring into his toaster one morning. You okay? He asked. I think I'm being replaced, I muttered. He didn't laugh. He didn't brush me off. He put down his coffee and asked me to explain. So I told him everything. When I finished, he was pale and shaking slightly. You need help, he said. I know. Not a therapist, he added. Something else. That night, he stayed with me at the house. We kept all the lights on. We sat in the living room, playing music, trying not to focus on the ticking clock or the groaning of the old house. But at 3:13 a.m., the music stopped, just cut out. The speakers hissed once and fell silent. Then we both heard it, from the bathroom upstairs. A laugh, not a deep one, not even loud, just a single, soft, wet-sounding chuckle, like someone who had just learned how to do it. Marcus stared at me, wide-eyed. You heard that? I whispered. He nodded. We didn't sleep that night. The next day, I checked the mirror again. The quilt was untouched. But beneath the tape, on the floor, was a footprint. Bare, small, damp, facing away from the mirror, toward the hallway. The footprint should not have been there. That was the thought that kept circling in my brain as I stared down at it. A single bare footprint, damp, human, too small to be mine or Marcus's, pressed faintly into the dusty wooden floorboards just outside the bathroom door. It pointed away from the mirror, not toward it, which meant it had stepped out. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just stood there, cold dread wrapping itself around my chest like iron bands. Marcus stayed downstairs. I hadn't told him about the footprint yet. I couldn't, because that would mean admitting the possibility that something, not a hallucination, not a dream, had crossed through. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Not until I knew more. Not until I knew what it wanted. I called Evelyn Hart again. This time, I didn't just ask questions. I begged her to come back. She arrived before sundown, grim-faced and more prepared than ever. Her bag was heavier, and this time she brought with her a thin, flat case wrapped in velvet. She didn't speak at first, just walked into the bathroom, stood over the footprint, and slowly unwrapped the velvet cloth. Inside was a hand mirror, but it was strange, oval-shaped, heavy, with a silver handle and a back engraved with what looked like Roman numerals and geometric etchings. The glass was foggy, not from condensation, but as if it held its own clouded memory. "I'm going to show you something," Evelyn said quietly, handing me the mirror. "Stand outside the bathroom. Look at the wall. Not the reflection of yourself, just the wall." I held it up with trembling hands. At first, I saw nothing but the grainy wood paneling of the bathroom wall. But then it shimmered and the image shifted. The wall and the mirror rippled, and then a face moved behind it. Not mine, not Evelyn's. Something inside the reflection, pressed against it, distorted like a face behind thin latex. Eyes bulging, mouth opening slowly, and it whispered something I could not hear, but somehow understood. "You left the door open." I dropped the mirror, but Evelyn caught it midair. "You see now," she said. "It's not just mimicking anymore. It's inhabiting. It doesn't need your reflection anymore. It's learned how to exist just enough, how to press into your world like a wet palm through thin ice." "What does it want?" I whispered. Evelyn hesitated. "It wants to replace you. It's not a demon. It's not a ghost. It's a reflection, given shape and thought by attention, by belief. Every time you looked at it, feared it, you fed it more of yourself. It's close now." The next 3 nights were a slow descent into something I still can't fully describe. If you've never experienced being haunted by yourself, I envy you. Mirrors I had covered began to weep, literal droplets of water pooling on the glass, soaking through tape and fabric. Behind those drops, faint fingerprints appeared, always on the inside. My own phone camera, when I turned it on by accident, caught glimpses of my face, but frozen, still staring back even when I wasn't looking at the lens. The worst moment happened on the 4th night, just after midnight. I heard Marcus scream. He was staying in the guest room downstairs. I ran to him, heart pounding, and found him huddled in the corner of the room, pale, shaking. It was you," he kept whispering. But it wasn't. I grabbed him. "Tell me what you saw." He pointed to the mirror above the fireplace mantel, one I had forgotten to cover. "I saw you standing behind me, but when I turned around, you weren't there." And then it turned its head toward me. It kept smiling, but its eyes were just wrong, like they were painted on, too wide, too knowing. We slept in the same room that night, back to back, the lights on. Neither of us spoke. But sometime around 3:30 a.m., I opened my eyes, and he wasn't there. The front door was ajar. No signs of struggle. No sound. No note. I called out his name again and again, until my throat was raw. Eventually, Evelyn came back again, but it was too late. Marcus had vanished. Police searched. No leads. No trace. Except one thing. The next morning, etched lightly into the bathroom mirror beneath the covered fabric, was a new line of backwards text. He didn't close his eyes. I collapsed, broke down. This was no longer haunting. It was hunting. Evelyn finally gave me a choice. "You can run," she said. "Move. Leave the house. Go off the grid. Burn every reflective object. And maybe it'll take a few years to find you again. But it will. What's the other choice?" She handed me a mirror shard. It shimmered with an oil-like sheen. "You confront it. You step through. You enter its side. But you might not come back." It was insanity. I knew that. But I had lost Marcus. I had lost my mind. And now I was going to lose my soul if I didn't do something. So I made the decision. We set the room. Evelyn prepared the mirror, a tall, covered antique I hadn't seen before, now unwrapped and humming with quiet, vibrating energy. She whispered words I didn't recognize, lit 3 candles, closed every door, and then she looked at me and said, "Do not speak its name. Do not believe what it shows you. And no matter what, don't smile back." When I stepped into the mirror, it was like falling through ice. Cold, crushing, airless. And then I was standing, not in my home, not anywhere real. A mirror world, inverted, warped. My house, but wrong, like a photo that had been developed in acid. Colors muted, corners too sharp, shadows too thick. And in every mirror, it was waiting, sometimes as me, sometimes as others, but always watching. I walked deeper, heart pounding, calling Marcus's name. No answer, only echoes, until I heard my own voice answer back. Ear. I turned and saw myself, but twisted, stretched. The skin hung too loose. The mouth moved before sound came out. The eyes were 2 black pits that pulsed faintly like heartbeats. "You left the door open," it said again, grinning. "Now you can't close it." I didn't breathe for a long time. I didn't dare, because I knew that if I did, if I even let my breath fog the mirror I now stood inside, I might let it find me more fully, might let it become me. I was inside the mirror, and the thing that had been haunting my home, mimicking my smile, copying my voice, stealing my reflection, it was standing 10 feet away, and it wore my face like a mask someone had practiced with too long. "Who are you?" I whispered. It smiled wider. "I'm the part of you you never wanted to see," it said. "The smile you forced when you wanted to scream. The calm voice you used when you were breaking. The stranger you've been becoming in every reflection you've ignored." It stepped closer. Its feet didn't touch the floor. It hovered just above it, toes dragging lightly across the surface like a reflection sliding over water. "I am the version of you that waited, while you looked away. The version that grew teeth in your shadow." I backed away, trying to focus on something, anything else. The walls of this place seemed solid, but not. They pulsed, faintly, like a house with a heartbeat. My heartbeat. And the more I walked, the more it began to reflect moments from my life, mirrored versions. A hallway from my childhood home, but stretched and warped, where every picture frame held a face I didn't recognize. A kitchen that resembled the one in my old apartment, except the counters were slick with dark fluid and the windows had eyes instead of panes. Every mirror I passed showed a version of myself, aged, younger, bloody, laughing maniacally, some even melting. All of them watching, none of them blinking. I heard Marcus's voice again, softer this time, calling from behind a wall. "Help me," he whispered. "It hurts. It's still copying me." I ran toward it, but every door I opened just led to more reflections. More rooms, more me's. Then I saw it, a bathroom like mine but inverted, and on the floor, huddled near the sink, was Marcus. He looked up. His eyes were wet, wild, terrified. "Is it really you?" he asked. I dropped to my knees. "It's me, I swear." He reached out a hand and then flinched. Your face," he whispered. "Don't smile. Please don't smile." I touched my mouth and realized I had been smiling without knowing it. The same hollow, stretched grin the creature wore. It was bleeding through me. I clamped my jaw shut. "We have to get out," I said. "There has to be a way." He shook his head. "There's no way. There's only trade." I paused. "Trade?" He nodded. "One goes back. One stays. It doesn't let both of us leave." I turned toward the only mirror in the room, the fogged, silver-backed one. Words were scrawled across it in condensation. Backward. Choose. Only one face returns. The creature appeared behind us. Closer now. Its arms too long, fingers too many, mouth wide open in a grin so huge it split its jaw. Marcus screamed, backed against the wall. "It'll take one of us," he shouted. "It always does. It lives through one and feasts on the other." I looked at him. Then I looked at my reflection. And I asked the question I didn't want to ask. "How do I know you're really Marcus?" His face fell. I don't know anymore. It was true. Here, everything was a lie. Even myself. I stood slowly, the mirror in front of me rippling. Behind me, the thing began to laugh. Not a loud, evil cackle. Just a small, dry chuckle. Like a person who had heard the same joke 1,000 times. "You already chose," it whispered. I gritted my teeth, closed my eyes, and ran through the mirror, through that wet, bone-chilling surface, and I crashed into the bathroom floor of my real house. I gasped, air tasting of copper and mold, and looked up into Evelyn's face. "You made it," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You came back." But I didn't speak. I just reached for the mirror behind me, and in the reflection, I saw myself. And next to me, Marcus, smiling, grinning, wider than a person should. Evelyn wouldn't stop staring at me. Not the concerned kind of staring someone give a loved one after a scare. This was the kind of stare you give to a door you think you locked, to a shape you think you saw move. Her eyes didn't blink often. She flinched when I stood too fast. I couldn't blame her. I hadn't stopped smiling. Not really. Not when I was supposed to. Not even when I was trying. "I'm fine," I said for the 10th time. Evelyn's hands were trembling as she slid a bowl of soup in front of me. "You're different." I nodded, not offended. "Wouldn't you be?" I was in there. I gestured toward the bathroom, where the mirror remained covered with a thick black trash bag and 3 layers of duct tape. "You didn't come out the same." Her voice was nearly inaudible. "It's the way your eyes, they don't quite look at me. It's like you're watching something behind me. Like you're watching for something else to arrive." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, but because she was right. I was watching. Because I didn't come back alone. It started again that night. The mirror, through the black plastic. The shape. It bulged outward like breath against a balloon. Except it didn't stop. It pushed further, as though something behind it was growing bigger, stronger. I stared at it from across the hallway. Evelyn begged me not to go near it, but I had to, because Marcus was smiling at me again. Not in the mirror. No, in the corner of my living room. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He just stood there, head tilted, mouth curled. And then he laughed, just once. Sharp and too loud. And I realized something horrifying. The smile that came out of that mirror wasn't mine. It had followed me out, but it wasn't mine to begin with. I visited a therapist. She asked if I had experienced dissociation. I smiled. She wrote something in her notebook and shifted in her seat. She was looking at my mouth. She was afraid. I didn't even want to smile. It just happened. I went to the bathroom of her office afterward. The mirror fogged from the hot water. I wiped it with my sleeve. There were 2 of me in the reflection. One standing. One crouched behind the first, grinning like a skull, tilting its head slowly, slowly, slowly. I ran, but I didn't stop watching myself in every reflective surface I passed. And every time, the second me was closer. I checked into a psychiatric hospital, not because I was crazy, but because I needed help, because I wanted someone else to see what I was seeing. They kept the mirrors covered, thankfully, but the polished floors, stainless steel sinks, someone's glasses, it was enough. I caught glimpses of him everywhere, grinning, waiting, until finally one night, I couldn't sleep, and a nurse walked past my room holding a small silver tray. The tray caught my face, and for a split second, it wasn't my face. It was a gaping, hollow smile, and its mouth moved in a way mine didn't. It said, "You left me there too long." I was released after 72 hours. They thought I was stable. I wasn't, but I knew better than to smile in the interviews. I practiced, bit my lip, focused on my breathing. The moment I got home, the mirror started to fog again, even though the bag was still there. Evelyn had gone to stay with her sister by then. She said I didn't move like me. She cried when she left. Now, the house is mine alone, but I'm not the only one living in it. Every mirror, every glass, every dark window at night shows a little more of him, and less of me. I began recording myself, just to be sure. Overnight videos, phone voice memos, surveillance. And one night, while playing back an audio file, I heard something else. Not my voice. A whisper. It said, "Soon you'll forget which one you were." The voice wasn't mine. It was a version of mine, yes, but stripped, hollowed, echoing. It wasn't threatening. It was patient, as though the thing knew I would eventually give in. Because every time I passed a mirror, I smiled. Every time, even when I didn't want to, even when I was crying, even when I screamed, the smile stayed. I'm not sure how long I stayed locked in the bathroom after the mirror screamed. Hours? Days. The only thing I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat and the sharp, wet sound of something breathing on the other side of the glass. Not behind it, inside it. I finally stumbled out when the silence became unbearable. My apartment looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. It was as if everything around me had memorized my fear. My reflection still watched me, even the black screen of my TV, the shine of my microwave door, the window at night. Always the eyes. Always that version of me that didn't blink when I did, that didn't move when I moved. I tried calling someone. Friends. My mother. Old co-workers. But every call went ecstatic. Not voicemail, static. And within that static, when I listened hard enough, I heard the faint sound of breathing. Not human. Deep, ragged, hungry. I smashed the phone. I made the mistake of thinking the worst was over. But this wasn't a haunting. It wasn't a ghost. It was a replacement. A slow replacement of me. That night, I dreamt of a mirror that stretched to the sky, with reflections that lived a second slower than the people in front of them, just slightly off like old film footage. I saw myself in the dream, raising my hands to the glass, begging my reflection to sync up, but it wouldn't. Instead, the reflection smiled. And then I woke up. Except I didn't. I was still in the bathroom, the real one. The one with the fogged mirror, even though I hadn't taken a shower. And written in the condensation, in that same looping, backward script I could never replicate, were the words, "You left the door open." That's when the things started happening in the rest of the apartment. The faucets turned on by themselves. The hallway light flickered in deliberate patterns, like Morse code. The mirror in my bedroom cracked down the center, and behind the crack, I saw a room that wasn't mine. I moved, packed a single bag, and fled. New town, new apartment. I didn't even set up mirrors. Used my phone camera to shave. Wore sunglasses inside to avoid seeing my reflection in windows. It helped for a time, until the fog came. Fog started appearing inside the apartment. Not outside, inside, as if the boundaries between things had loosened. At first I thought it was mold or gas, but then I noticed it didn't move like air. It curled toward the mirrorless wall, pooling like something was trying to escape through the drywall. That night, I slept on the couch. I dream of eyes, hundreds of them, human and not. Some blinking vertically, others with no lids at all. They filled the fog. They were etched into it, not behind it, within it. When I woke, my body was covered in fingerprints. Like someone or something had been feeling my skin while I slept. Cold, wet, unclean. I bought a mirror, a small one, just to test it. I stood it up in the living room and stared. At first it was just me. Then it smiled, and I didn't. The replacement was close. I went to a priest. He told me to confess. I tried, but when I opened my mouth, my voice came out in his. The reflections. He looked at me in horror and told me I wasn't cursed. I was opened. That something had been watching me for longer than I realized. And now it had found a way through. That's when I understood this wasn't a haunting. This was a breach. And I was the wound it came through. It started in the mirror. But mirrors are everywhere now. They're in our screens, our lenses, our eyes. The creature or presence or consciousness didn't just want to mimic. It wanted to merge. The final sign came 3 nights ago. I had sealed every mirror, thrown away electronics, sat in a dark room with no reflections. And yet across the room, I saw me. Not my reflection. Me. He stood there grinning. His eyes were black pits with shifting movement beneath, like there were other faces swimming just behind his gaze. He didn't speak with a voice. He spoke into my mind. You saw me, and now you are seen. I couldn't move. He walked to the wall and placed his hand on the drywall, the same wall where the fog had curled, and it breathed. It inhaled just slightly, and the paint bubbled outward like lungs expanding. The drywall cracked. The fog returned, but this time it brought sounds. Screaming, laughter, scratching, static. I blacked out. I woke up this morning in bed, clean. The fog gone. No signs of anything. The mirror in my bathroom is whole again. But I don't trust it, because the reflection is moving on its own again. Watching. And this time, I think it's waiting for you. So if you're reading this, cover your mirrors. Block the screen. Don't stare too long into reflections. Because once it sees you, really sees you, it starts to learn you. Then it follows you. Then it replaces you. And then, like me, you'll start to see eyes etched into every fog mirror. Forever.